Hi, I'm Malcolm Nance, and if you are watching this, you have come to see an super exciting episode of Black Man Spy, U.S. Iran back at Warcast, day 18 of the new era slash 152 days since combat started in February 28th at high noon in Iran. This is now the 152nd day. We can no longer pretend that this was going to be a short war and that there is a short solution that is going to give us answers, because they almost had this thing done with the Memorandum of Understanding. And now that's out the window. So let me introduce our co-hosts here today. Jacob Karsbo, Danish intelligence officer extraordinaire, Middle East expert, a lot of on-the-ground experience like me. And our non-spy, as part of the Black Man Spy podcast, is Wajeeh, the gay lion, Saudi Arabian geopolitical analyst of Gulf states' fortunes, which appear to be getting less and less fortunate every day. We are going to skip over the light banter and the hearty bro talk and showing of coffee mugs, because let me tell you, if you guys can't see the darkness under my eyes, I went to bed late and I got up early. I got up at 2 a.m. this morning just to start counting the beans of the attacks that started at 6 p.m. yesterday. So, by 10 p.m. I was out. I was like, screw it. We have this phrase in the military: bombing continues. So that's what I did. And then I got up at 2 a.m. I was like, bombing continuing. And I started counting them up. If you had been living under a rock or you didn't watch our show yesterday, we made the not particularly psychic-like prediction that the United States and Iran would be exchanging blows again. Not a hard prediction to make. And that's exactly what happened. Now, Donald Trump did forsooth this. He presaged this by making a statement during a press gaggle about 12 hours before they did it, that the United States would be hitting Iran hard for their sneaky attack on Jordan yesterday. But I don't think so. I just think it was just because we had all these airplanes sitting around. Remember, he had promised to have the biggest air campaign in history. Well, he actually made that promise the first week of the war in March. Now it's the next biggest campaign, and the Iranians won't know what hit them. As a matter of fact, one of the quotes that he said to Fox News is that he intended to beat the fucking shit out of them.
That's right.
Oh, all I know is that when I woke up this morning,
that was the quote from yesterday morning. Yesterday morning.
Well, this is the strike that went with it. I'm sorry, guys. I know that I know you're going to hear a little noise here, but I got to fill up the double espresso again. I got an fully automatic coffee maker next to me now. I don't have it downstairs
for the same reason I brought out this cup.
That's right. World peace cannot be safeguarded without the making of creative efforts proportionate to the dangers which threaten it. Excellent point. And we are in one of those situations. Unfortunately, we are trapped in the cycle of stupid, which, when married with Professor Robert Pape's escalation ladder, you get the cycle of stupid escalation. And that's what we are trapped in. The United States took the bait. They did escalate yesterday. Why is my coffee not brewing? It's not funny here. All right. It's like my fifth one. I might have to check the water. It is panic mode at this point. So the United States committed to beat the fucking shit out of the Iranians yesterday for the supposed sneaky attack on U.S. forces. And it came off without a hitch as of yesterday afternoon, around 6 p.m. East Coast time, which of course is like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Iranian time, Persian Gulf time. The United States launched those airstrikes against Iran in what Central Command described as a heavy strike, as opposed to the light strikes that they've been doing here for the last, let me count them, 17 days before this. Well, apparently this was not heavy enough. It was not heavy enough. So now they did a truly heavy strike against the Iranians.
Yeah.
However, the strikes seem to be very familiar to me. They struck the U.S. Navy, struck all the usual suspects throughout the Persian Gulf, which is Chabahar, Jazz, Surik, Qasem Island, Bandar Abbas, Bushehr, and going up north. Qasem Island. They got Qasem Island. That's on my list. I never forget Qasem Island, baby. It's shaped like a shark. How do you forget that?
Bushehr up here.
Bushehr. We took Bushehr. And then we used operating out of Kuwait. We had precision strike missiles flying towards Ahvaz again, which is in the southwest northern portion, southwest north of Bandar Khomeini. If you go and find Bandar Khomeini right there, go north, you'll find Ahvaz up there.
Yeah.
In addition, U.S. military forces using heavy bombers and other strike aircraft struck the Abadan region, and the only thing up there is the Abadan oil fields. So we don't know whether the Abadan oil fields were put out of commission or if there were IRGC assets there. In Ahvaz, they struck the IRGC central headquarters on an Air Force base. And this reminds me of the Israeli campaign to start which they did in March or April, where they started knocking down IRGC headquarters and offices in order to sort of give the population the feeling that they could rise up because the IRGC didn't have a place to go brew coffee. Of course they do. They go to every street corner and they ask a gahwaji, a chai wala, right? To go, yeah, chai wala.
Gahwaji.
Gahwaji, yeah, gahwaji. A gahwaji is the guy who goes and gets coffee, kahwa. All right, he runs and gets kahwa. In South Asia, in Persia, shaiwala. All right, shaiwala is the young kid that runs out and goes and gets you a tea, a chai. And I like the way that they say shaiwala because it really is shai wallah, right?
Wallahi, yeah.
Wallahi, tea, please. Right? So that's what a tea boy is, right? So the shaiwalas and the gahwajis of Iran are running back and forth this morning. Mothers are making extra pan-fried bread because the IRGC headquarters got hit and they don't have a place to go to lunch. I'm so glad we did this. So the United States did carry out this heavy strike. As Trump says, it was in retaliation for the attack on the airbase in Jordan, which led to the Iranians attacking that same airbase in Jordan. The Muwafiq al-Salti airbase was struck again by 5 ballistic missiles again, and they were all supposedly intercepted again. So, not so satisfied with that, the Iranians carried out ballistic missile and drone attacks on Kuwait City, hitting, very interestingly enough, they tried to hit Ali al-Salam Air Base, which they always do, but a drone hit the headquarters of a Chinese shipping company. Not quite sure what that means. Maybe they weren't playing ball. Maybe they owed them 5 or 6 IRGC multi-pass transits, and they owed them some money. So they just thought it would be fun to put a drone into the middle of their company offices, just to remind them that they need to pay their tolls. I don't know. I'm just guessing on that point.
It's so unfortunate when those things happen.
You do that while I fix my coffee machine. Go ahead. I'm listening.
And as Malcolm just explained, it's also very important to understand that most of the targets that the U.S. struck have been struck before. You know, it's as if they're putting bombs into the same holes in the ground most of the time.
You know, we call that The phrase is pounding rubble.
Pounding rubble.
Yeah.
Pounding rubble. Because you need to make that rubble look good.
Yeah.
Listen.
So there were.
Iran,
I know in one of the strikes, the IRGC has come out and stated that 3 of their officers were killed. But that's all we know.
Sorry, guys, I was out of water.
Iran has way more targets to hit than the United States, it seems like, because they have hidden everything under mountains. And it seems like these mountains that we need to reach would take extraordinary infiltration and military on the ground that we just don't want to sacrifice at the moment, which is reasonable. And the reality is every time we do a stupid attack like this, we do several things to our military. One, we further degrade our we empty our stockpile. We degrade our equipment. We open more targets, not only in the Middle East but across the world, and we are allowing Iran, giving them the perfect excuse and their allies to attack these Gulf states. So it's genuinely, it doesn't seem like strategically viable option at this point unless you're going to have troops on the ground. Why would you hit why are you hitting rocks? Why are you like literally
to show they are just doing something?
Wait. Okay, pause, guys. I made the unfortunate error of leaving the chat open, but someone just came up with a new acronym. DATES. Okay? DATES. Dumbass Trump eating Shaheed.
Dumbass Trump eating Shaheed.
Let me write that down.
That chat.
Who gets credit for that? Derek. Oh no. Another one. Derek says dates distracts against the Epstein show. You guys. Oh, you guys are too much. There it is. Blade VWV came up with that. I'm writing that down. Okay. That's up
Trump,
there
if
with
you're
taco,
feeling
burrito, and chili. There's t-shirts to be made here, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, Wajeeh, you were saying watch. That's serious.
I was about to say, Donald Trump, if you're feeling lonely at night and you don't have a date, it's okay. Get some of the Saudi dates, put it in the microwave a second or two, and you have the hottest date of your night.
That wasn't even a dad joke. That's the kind of joke. Okay, I'm going to tell you where I expect to hear that joke. That's the kind of stupid ass joke I would expect it to have heard in one of those Egyptian Marx Brothers style films from the 1950s. Halas, you take dates, put it on the oven, get it out. You have a date. Then Kulthum starts singing.
Exactly. Oh, you gotta love Kulthum. It hits the spot, man.
Culture time. All right, let's go back to the war. Okay, so in exchange, the United States bombing Iran immediately came back and said, we can play this game too. We struck Jordan, Kuwait, drones, ballistic missiles. Now, the thing that is going to occupy this show for the better part of this show is we need to have this discussion. Apparently, out of nowhere, in the port of Damietta, Egypt, which is about 50 kilometers it's on the Mediterranean coast, 50 kilometers to the west of the
up here in
Port
the corner.
Said. Right. No, it's west, a little bit to the west of Port Said.
Yeah.
You can get an Egyptian map up there. Been to Damietta. I was there when it was a shit-ass old Soviet, former British port. It was horrible. But you could get on a bus and go down to Cairo. But now it is an ultra modern, very advanced liquid natural gas and petroleum handling port. And it is nice now. I got to tell you something. I've seen satellite imagery of that port this week. Wow. Way better than when I was there. When I was back there, they were still using like wind up handles to pull up ropes and pulleys back then, right? They had wallas back there, cargo wallas, carrying cargo on their backs. So that port now handles liquid natural gas. Yesterday, there was a report that two vessels, principally one and the other might have been debris off another one, were struck by drones. These vessels were not just any vessels. They were loaded liquid natural gas tankers. Now, for those of you who have been watching this show all this time, you might remember me referring to these objects as floating atomic bombs because the liquid natural gas is not in its natural state, which is gas. They freeze it, they liquefy it, they get it down to the state where it can be pump loaded onto a vessel that is really a giant freezer with a massive series of compression domes that keep that natural gas in its liquefied state. However, could flame, fire, or other immediate pressure releasing activities like dropping a drone into the middle of it happen? It naturally changes not only back to its gaseous state, it goes into an explosive state. Good example of this was 3 months ago, a Russian liquid natural gas carrier that was carrying natural gas in the middle of the Mediterranean was intercepted by a Ukrainian vessel which used regular ass drones, right? Octocopters with explosives on them to land on this LNG carrier and blow up. Subsequently, the vessel made what we call a second sunrise. The vessel massively exploded. All of its tanks went off. Ships for dozens and dozens of miles could see the explosion because the gas burns and it goes up and it looks like a miniature atomic bomb went off because LNG is sort of like a natural miniature atomic bomb. As the flames consume the gas heat rises and it goes up and it makes that mushroom cloud thing. That ship burned for 3 days. And then, because most of the gas is above the waterline, it floated as a floating wrecked hulk for weeks. I don't even know the status of it. I don't even know if it's actually sunk yet. But it was out there for weeks. People were going by, and this thing was gutted end to end. And the Ukrainians are like, oh, gee, it's terrible that ship of yours blew up like that. Someone got the message and said, hey, there is a U.S. flagged tanker in the port of Damietta, Egypt, unloading. Wouldn't it be funny if we hit it with a drone? Now, I'm going to hold my punches. We're all going to take guesses as to who did this, because this is without any definition the spectacular penetration of the day. Because one, geographically of where Damietta Port is loaded. I've been there, been to Alexandria. I go to Alexandria every year. Alexandria is another 50 kilometers to the west. Damietta is like somebody took a knife and carved out a really nice port right in the middle of the Mediterranean. It kept going till you get to Port Said, and you go down the Suez Canal. So the problem that I have with this attack is, one, everybody is saying Iran launched a drone or the Houthis launched a drone and they blew up this or they hit the LNG tanker at this port. But all the weapon systems that these forces have, the Shahed drones, these drones have massive warheads. I think the Shahed has a 100 kilogram. That's almost a 250-pound warhead. You don't hit an LNG tanker and start a small fire on the deck, which is what we saw here. The Egyptian authorities immediately, when they had heard a fire was away on an filled LNG tanker in port, okay? Now, the first thing you think of is, oh my God, this entire port can be leveled right now if that ship explodes. That's what would happen. I mean, the port of Damietta, harbor buildings, coffee shops, everything flattened like fucking Hiroshima if that thing goes off. So the first thing they did is they bought up 2 tugboats and fire tenders started spraying down the area of the fire where the deck was. And then they bought out the heavy lift tugboats and they dragged that fucking ship out of the port and put it 13 nautical miles just outside.
Oh, really?
They stupid, man. They put that thing in international waters so that when it blows up, if it were to blow up, 1, available for immediate salvage. 2, it would sink in international waters. You can't do it in Egyptian waters. So it did not blow up. The vessel is out there. They are inspecting it now. I slapped down a lot of people on the internet yesterday because they were all going, oh my God, Iranian drone hit this tanker, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't seeing the evidence of it. Ships have fires in port. These ships shouldn't have fires in port, but they do. And so finally this morning at about 3 a.m., the Egyptian authorities, I put it up on Substack in its original Arabic, came out and said, yes, 2 vessels were hit by Tayera Musira, which is flying aircraft or drone or what is it? Remotely operated aircraft, drones. Mm-hmm. So the Egyptians have now acknowledged that because I personally want to see drone video. And here's why I do not believe it was Iranian. 1, I have been to Egypt. I go to Egypt all the time. Love Egypt. City of Cairo, 20 million people. Okay? Every other inch of Egypt is about 1 million people. Egypt is a massively, densely populated country. And you can't tell me that you can show me a flight route of a Shaheed drone. Let's say that it was fired from near Karg Island, right? Or southern Iraq. If you could point to Karg Island up there for me, Jacob, on your map, way up there, further up, up the Persian Gulf. Near Iraq.
Karg Island.
Karg
okay,
Island,
sorry.
From Karg Island there, the Iranian coast up there. Now, dude, give me a straight line to Damietta, Egypt. Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Egypt,
Jordan.
and then you got to fly over the Suez Canal, right? Now, I have also years of studying and using as a target the Egyptian Air Force. I've seen the Egyptian Air Force go from freaking MiG-15s up to Mirage 2000s and F-16s. Nobody's going to tell me that a little puttering flying motorboat that's moving at 150 miles per hour, no one's got a mobile phone that would have said, hey, look, a Shaheed drone. Everybody and their dog would have tracked it. Okay. Also, that drone would have to have flown over no less than 2 large Egyptian air bases, okay, that are on the Suez Canal to get to Damietta. I just don't see it. So the fact that the ships didn't bloaty up right away tells me these drones were very small and most likely hand-guided, radio-controlled drones by someone in Egypt near the port. Because there ain't all the big real weapon drone systems, they would not have failed in that mission. This isn't something you can use a loitering munition because none of the loitering munitions Iran has can go more than a couple of hundred, can go more than 50 kilometers. So it's not a Shaheed. And if it was a Shaheed, it was a Shaheed that failed. But it makes me wonder when you look at that, just how far from Iran that was. Yeah, they have put drones into RAF Akrotiri. But in fact, RAF Akrotiri is actually closer to Iran than Damietta Port in Egypt. So, I just find it very funny. Funny ho ho, not funny ha ha. Yes, Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, there have been drones from Yemen crossing into the
Eilat
Sinai
and the
Peninsula.
Sinai going at Israel.
Yeah.
But now you're not talking about drones flying over the densest parts of Egypt, where everyone would have been looking up with a drone. I mean, just everyone knows what what Shaheed looks like now. And
But
it
they don't
happened in
necessarily fly a straight line.
Of course, you could have put it on a jinking course. You could have flown it over the Sinai, straight up and down the Sinai, right? Straight over. What's the name of the mountain where Moses was? Not Mount Meru. Anyway, and you could have gone up to El Arish and turned left, gone out over the water, and then come down into Port freaking Damietta. But why not just blow up something in the Suez Canal? That would have created real mayhem, right? A vessel in the canal. Yes, Wajeeh, what do you think?
Here's what I think. I think this plays perfectly into the hands of the Iranians in controlling the waterways, whether they are indirect, like whether they shot it directly or not. The 12% of economic traffic passes through the Suez to Bab el Mandab. That's just all of the world economy, not oil, not LNG. That's anything and everything from the economy passes from the Suez Canal. 12%. You stop that, you have basically destroyed another level of the economic. Now the Egyptians say that the Suez Canal is at full speed. The ships are moving just fine.
Yeah.
And nothing has been intercepted. What I think this shows is capabilities. I think this shows capabilities. It shows intent. It shows willingness to say, I am willing to take this further.
Who?
Every time the United States, Iran.
Who? If it's Iran, you're saying if it was Iran.
If it was Iran, it would signal that I can destroy way more than the world economy than you thought I could. You thought I just had the Strait of Hormuz? Wait a minute. Let me show you something more. Hold on. Take a second. Sip your tea. Did you take a sip? Okay. I'm gonna show you something. Exactly. That's exactly what the Iranians did. That's what I feel like they just happened.
I think for me the main theory, as I said yesterday, was that it's a drone from Lebanon.
Well, that's a
From
good
Hezbollah.
one, that it could be Hezbollah. However, there are so many targets. If I'm doing the targeteering on this, right, there are so many good targets down there. You want to hit something in Ashdod. It'll get through, right? I mean, Ashdod's a big container port, but it also has an oil port and an LNG port. Easier. Port of Haifa. I was just, I was in Port of Haifa last year. I was in Ashdod last year, in Ashkelon. There are better, easier targets. I mean, yeah, granted, the Israelis have a better capacity to intercept you, but why not just hit Port Said? Hit the container ships. Set fire to a ship dead Suez Canal if your intention is to stop the Suez Canal. Why do you need to go find an obscure little LNG port like Damietta unless you intend to have a massive casualty attack, which would do one thing? And this is I'll stop here. Why do you want to bring Egypt into this fight? Why do you want to bring all of the fucking firepower of Egypt into this war against Iran?
Yeah, I think we can't say, obviously, but I think the calculus we've not seen Iran or Iran-affiliated militias target Israel for a while, right? And I would say this is probably looked upon as a U.S. target. I know the Egyptians will be pissed, but it's like the Qataris will be pissed, and everyone's pissed.
If I detonate the natural gas equivalent of a 1 kiloton atomic bomb in the middle of their largest LNG port, which, by the way, would detonate all the other vessels around it, and the storage tanks, and the mixing tanks, right? In other words, putting Egypt out of the liquid natural gas market, then I better not fuck up, right? So.
No. But as you were saying yourself, Malcolm, and that's a very valid point. Maybe the explosive, hasn't been big. Maybe the intention is not to destroy a whole lot, but to send a message. And clearly, Damietta, no one saw it coming. Suddenly, it was there. It showed a weakness. So maybe the intention is to not create a lot of destruction, but to send a message and say, well, we can do even more. We can escalate even more. But we don't know. But I mean, that's something as analysts we
I got to
should
see some
consider.
goddamn drone parts. I'm going to go out on a limb because of the lack of explosive force that it was a small homemade drone. Now, that gives you Islamic State in the Sinai, right? Which is still there. The Islamic State terrorist groups are still in the Sinai Peninsula. And they had a massive war with the Egyptians for years. Also, the Muslim Brotherhood, who were out there. And we're talking about a tiny little drone. By the way, I know this for reals, because I've had my bags ripped apart numerous times by Egyptian authorities. Drones are not authorized in Egypt. But if you want something in Egypt, you go, here is money, it's on a table. And believe me, 50 people will be walking up with fully operating drones in a heartbeat. So, they'll get them from all over the place. Westerners can't bring them in.
Bakshish.
Yeah, bakshish, dude, all sorts of diabolic going on there. So I think it was Egyptian, indigenous, but to whose effort? On the other hand, red teaming here. Let's red team this game so that we are not. We got to think of every alternative. Start from the targeteering of this. The target is Damietta Port, Egypt's big LNG container, LNG port. Right now, LNG imports are at their lowest, okay, outside of even Qatar. I read this last night. Qatar delivered 30 loads of LNG to its clients. You know how they did it? They bought American liquid natural gas and delivered on the contracts that they owed. Right? They owed people because they couldn't get LNG out. Now, Trump likes that, right? Now, I'm not saying that Trump brags about this all the time. People are buying our gas. People are buying our oil. Qatar just didn't want to lose these clients and didn't want to renege on those gas deals. By the way, that story is on the front page of oilprice.com. And on the other hand, who are the other competitors? You've got now producers of LNG. Well, here you have this giant LNG port in Egypt. Egypt, like Israel, is getting it from offshore. And the two biggest competitors in that part of the Mediterranean are Israel, with their LNG fields off of Haifa and oil fields and LNG fields off of Ashkelon in the south, aka Gaza. And I've seen them. I've been right there. What's the name of the beach? Not Siderot. It'll come to me in a minute. But you can see them. All the platforms are right there, and they go straight down into Gaza. All right? Israel gets oil and gas out of those platforms. So they're a big producer. And then you have these sites off of the Egyptian coast with this giant support port. Just yesterday, Benjamin Netanyahu was making a pitch to Saudi Arabia. I don't know if you guys have been watching Al Jazeera, but Israel is making a pitch to the Arab states to bring their oil and natural gas through Eilat, through Aqaba, Jordan, and they would make a connecting pipeline in Eilat, and it would go out through Ashdod, Israel. And he's calling it the most secure oil pipeline in the world. red teaming here. I got to prove that everybody else is not secure.
Why do I feel like he's gonna call it the Moses pipeline?
The Musa, Abu Musa,
Abu
Abu
Musa
Musa
pipeline.
pipeline. No, the pipeline exists, by the way. There is a secondary pipeline from Saudi to Aqaba, Jordan. It's the connecting the two parts so that it goes out through Israel. And Israel has been pitching this that it's more secure to the Mediterranean than all of the Arab ports and pipelines. So, but red teaming this. Key bono, guys. Who benefits if the port of fucking Damietta, Egypt blows up, right? And it wipes out the Egyptian LNG industry. Number two, it would force Egypt with its massive armed forces to want to get revenge. And it would bring Egypt onto our side if Egypt were convinced that the Iranians did it, which means supporting the Saudis with maybe fighter jets. And don't forget, back when Gamal Abdel Nasser, right, father of modern Egypt, was fighting in the 1960s, he took multiple divisions of Egyptian army soldiers and invaded what country, Wajeeh? You remember?
Israel.
Are you old enough to remember? No, not 67, before that. Yemen. The Egyptian army invaded Yemen.
That's right. The war in Yemen.
I'm an old timer, so I remember those things. And then when the 67 war broke out, a lot of his forces were in Yemen. And they still couldn't subjugate the Houthis, by the way. I mean, like something like 30,000 or more Egyptian troops couldn't do it. That's back when it was North and South Yemen. So my point being, the Egyptians have been laying very cool. Somebody out there is thinking Malcolm's tour to Egypt this year needs to have a lot more exciting action going on. Let's do something about it. No,
that could be the intention.
No,
that could be the intention behind the strike.
Listen, I was in Egypt when ISIS wiped out, 75 tourists down in Luxor. Yeah. Okay. I went to the pyramids, and I'm going to tell you, I went as part of the cultural security program that was being held internationally to teach the Arab states about ISIS and Al Qaeda. And my job was to read them the Riot Act. Do you know how many people were at the pyramids at the normal midday period when there's about 1 million people there or whatever? 3. And they were Russians. And they got out of a taxi cab. There were no other people at the pyramids of Egypt at that time. That's how bad tourism was impacted by one terrorist attack. Now, if you make a tiny atomic bomb out of Damietta and you wipe out a good portion of Egypt's liquid natural gas, or 100% of Egypt's liquid natural gas processing facility, it would look like Iran is getting aggressive against other Gulf states. But you would have to prove that. You better bring up a shaheed. And here's another thing. You can bring up a shaheed. We've captured shaheeds. Other countries have captured shaheeds. Israel shot them down by the hundreds. So somebody shows me shaheed parts, I better see a video of that thing going into the side of the thing with a broadcast. And you know what's even funnier? It'll probably have freaking Starlink on it. So it will be a Lucas drone, right? Is it possible another country did this to bring Egypt into this war? That's what a red team discussion is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say Egypt itself also is vulnerable, regardless of the size of its armed forces. It is vulnerable. And there's no evidence to suggest that, the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Egyptians are necessarily on the other side, on the same side. We know that from Sudan. We know that from Libya, etc., etc. So I still think,
but the Egyptians and the Emiratis are like this. They're like this. So, you go up to New El Alamein, it's like going to Dubai. There's hundreds of billions of Emirati dollars in Egypt. So You think
You really have to take a lot of things into consideration when talking to Egypt. They have been struggling economically for the last 4 decades. They have
bro?
Sisi. Sisi has started his own projects that he wants to finish, including his own capital, and he's trying to move his own military there with the hexagon or something like that. And with the so he has his own cities, and he's dependent on those last pennies that he has. And anything like this war interrupting his project is
Right.
not good for him domestically at all. He's people don't have any patience in Egypt right now for a war. They're just genuinely not there. People are rationing their food to buy bread in Egypt. People are living on a couple dollars a day in Egypt. The situation is dire there. So
Listen,
like
they've
he's
got a
not ready for war.
they've got a population of 120 million people. Cairo, where I go to every year, I spend weeks in Egypt. Cairo's 20 million people, and it looks like it. I mean, when you go there, I mean, it's
Yeah.
Diham, baby. It is crowded in Cairo. And if you need somebody to do something, you need a Gahwaji or a Shaiwala, you're going to get one because there's 20 people that will run out and do whatever it is that you need done because, as Wajeeh just said, they are not Saudis. Saudi Arabia is only 25 million people. Okay. There's 6 Egyptians for every Saudi on this planet. And the Saudis are a welfare state. 100% of Saudi Arabia, you get all your money from the government for whatever you need, all the way education, everything. So Egypt, I can't even see a reason for bringing Egypt into this war unless you intended to shake the confidence of of Egypt as a viable alternative to the Bab el-Mandab in the Strait of Hormuz. And I could imagine the Iranians doing that. But if they're going to do it, they're going to do it big. They're going to do it with a proxy like Yemen. But you would sink a fucking ship in the middle of the Suez Canal, stop it up for weeks, not attempt to wipe out, the population of the port of Damietta, which is what those LNG tankers would have done. Oh, let me see what the population of Damietta is.
Could it be Israeli capabilities? It sounds something similar to what they have done to the flotilla before. The small drones, very small drones.
Any idiot can use a small drone. Again, the phrase targeteering in the military means the process of choosing your target and making that target have the effects that you want. Usually, when you aim at something, you better figure out what does it do. Does it degrade capability? Does it have a strategic purpose? Blasting the port of Damietta with an LNG carrier has a strategic purpose. It is to bring Egypt into the war, make them angry at Iran if Iran did it, wipe out their LNG capacity so that now the biggest LNG producer in the world will become the United States and Russia, and it would give hegemony to LNG production in the Eastern Mediterranean to Israel.
But I still don't think that the intention has been to level Damietta. That's the caution.
When you
I would say.
explode a drone next to, why didn't it hit a fucking tugboat? Okay, there's an Egyptian Navy base there. It's got like 10 frigates and a shitload of minesweepers. There is a famous terrorist attack that took place in Damietta about 10 years ago. I'll have to refer to my book, Defeating ISIS, in which they killed the captain of a high-speed Egyptian naval launch. ISIS of Egypt killed the captain, took his boat, and went fucking marauding with guns all around the Egyptian coast until the Egyptian Navy sank the vessel. So, there's been terrorism there before, but who benefits from blowing up massively a liquid natural gas tanker and the one next to it?
But we don't know that that has been the intention. If it's a small drone on the bridge of these,
Bro,
hear me out. Hear me out. Israel benefits. Israel has been wanting more people to fight against the Iranians. They can't even convince the Americans to go have more troops on the ground. Anyone else joining the war against the Iranians is a win for Israel. So wouldn't you want to conduct any underground attacks against your neighboring countries to provoke them and call it on the Iranians?
See, if I were the Israelis, but this is why I have a hard time believing it's the Israelis. If I was the Israelis, I'd take one of them rebuilt ass Shahed drones. All right. I'd launch that thing out in the eastern desert and make it come back over Saudi Arabia and then pop up on the radar. All right. And then I would hit a tanker in the middle of the fucking Strait of the Suez Canal, which would devastate their economy, right? It would be high profile. But this feels, the reason I mentioned the phrase targeteering is one of the phrases that they use in targeteering analysis is the target determines the tactic. Okay? Why you got to penetrate a lot of Egyptian airspace over a lot of fallahs out there in their little date farms who could have cameras who could determine where that drone has gone to and come from. It's too risky.
Not
It's got to be
here.
someone in that port. From where? From Yemen? Where's your map? I don't see your map.
From Lebanon. From Lebanon.
Lebanon.
From Lebanon.
Hey, you know what? Can you Google Earth the? I don't know if your laptop has Google Earth capacity. I just need to see.
It does. But
I need to see a picture of the Sinai coast. And that I really have got to get. If I get an extension cord for my laptop, I can actually go back to my main desk and start showing the images.
Yeah.
If it's launched from South Lebanon, but once again, key bono. Why would Hezbollah want to have Egypt fucking landing 10,000 amphibious troops in the port of Tyre and Sidon to get back for killing 100 or 200 or 1,000 Egyptians?
Because the intention has been to just send signals and to threaten and to really strike, a soft strike on an American target and to give the impression of a spreading conflict. I don't know if it's true.
Urban Hermit's saying if the intention wasn't to cause a big explosion, they would have used a bigger drone. No. How about they use the drone they had? Right? You got to use the tools in hand. If you're a real terrorist group, this is going to come. I'll bet you the Egyptians blame it on Islamic State of the Sinai Peninsula or the Muslim Brotherhood. Okay, because this thing had to have been a hand-operated drone without very many legs. But why would you didn't have to hit that thing? You could have done what they did before, hijack a boat. All right. But why? Somebody is looking at that LNG tanker and they're going, that thing's going to blow up pretty. It's going to blow up good. Right?
Maybe
anyway,
not.
We're not going to solve it here. All right. Hold on. I just got on the population.
It's good to have this red team discussion because that is what we do as intelligence people. And that's super important because we don't have the evidences yet. But it's a fruitful methodology.
And it's necessary. You should always look at an incident from your enemy's, perspective and, of course, how they would think about how they would do this attack. Port of Damietta, the city of Damietta, which is next to the port, has a population of 305,000 people, right? The metro area, that surrounding area, has 1.1 million area. But let me tell you something. The population density of that place, because it's in the lower Nile Valley, which is also the upper part of Egypt as we see it, right? It's where all those little rivulets from the Nile go out to the ocean. Its population density, I shit you not, it's 88,630 people per square kilometer.
It's cramped.
They would have killed thousands if that thing had gone off. There's going to be, I shit you not, there'll be drone nets around that loading pier in no time, Ukrainian-style drone nets. because it's now been designated as a target. All right. Well, we're not going to solve that right now, but you've now seen a good example of red teaming. Everybody argues out what you know, what you don't know. And Martin Amarillo is correct. Amarillo is correct. We don't have enough evidence.
Think out of the box.
Got to think outside the box. All right, let's go to questions. Since we've run this down to the end. Okay, the questions were put up earlier this morning about 7:00. And here we are on today's questions, only 44, because you guys are engaging like big dogs. The chat is the most hilarious thing. Somebody says, I stand with Colonel Mustard and Eric Trump in the library. With a sledgehammer.
Make sure you have a date.
Make sure you have a date. Okay, Cali for Cali says, this is for you, Wajeeh, Jacob. Will Ukraine get involved in the Iran war? They have been. They've 30,000 drones have hit
Iran
Ukraine.
has been involved in the Ukraine war since 2022.
That's
and
right.
ships have been sunk in the Caspian Sea before. So the only new thing in what happened, the only new thing in what happened is the fact that the Ukrainians have come out and say, yes, we did sink it. And why did they do that? That's because they wanted to prove to Donald Trump that the Iranians and the Russians are cooperating, and it's a massive problem for Ukraine, and they want Trump to stand up to Putin, which of course Trump won't do because of the books Malcolm have written, and I've written one myself about, with a different angle, but pretty much the same thought. And this is also what the evidence tells us, that the Ukrainians want this out in the public so people understand. And that was why they came out and said, yes, we did strike that arms transport.
Yep. Well, but yeah, by extension, they're involved in the Iran war. They need to cut those pipelines off from Iran to Russia and vice versa. Dave says, are we really running low on munitions? No, just our precision munitions. We have plenty of bombs. Karen Kelly says, have you heard of National Guard troops being called up to go to the Middle East? National Guard troops go to the Middle East all the time. They're essentially regular army now with the name National Guard. Watch, I'll give you this one. I saw reports Egypt was struck. Is this Iran potentially trying to cut off her influence over the Suez Canal? And most importantly, how fucked is the world if that happens?
Regardless if Iran was directly responsible for it, I have what I was trying to say. They are the main beneficiary at the moment from that attack, because it worsened the global economy and it makes America and the global nations more desperate for a deal to happen sooner than ever. And the more that is likely, the sooner the Americans are going to realize that they probably can't win this war. But I don't know what this is, honestly.
True. Okay. To make my question, wait, no, that's a half question. Have the Iranians really put kill orders out on Melania and Barron? I'm seeing, have the Iranians really put kill orders out on Melania and Barron? Okay, first off, according to the laws of Islamic warfare, you cannot kill the women and children of your enemy. You can sell them into slavery, but you cannot kill them. However, Barron is a grown-ass man. But the only thing I saw one meme or whatever it was on Twitter about that. I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. This is the sort of crazy shit.
Why they have one on Barron and Melania and not have one on
Don Jr., right?
And Don Jr. and Jared Kushner? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It's crazy. This is the sort of thing that a right-wing crazy person would do. And they would have gibberish like Arabic keyboard letters under it, not knowing that Arabic goes from right to left. And it would just be those standalone letters in a line. Do you ever see that? when people are just think they're writing something. Yeah, no, I don't believe that. But Trump is playing it out. They're actually, did you see that the White House is trying to order, I'm not joking, 250 armored Cadillac Escalades for White House staff? That means everyone gets armored security and armored detail. This is the most,
Wow.
it's insane. It's insane. As someone who bought heavy armored vehicles for our contracts in Iraq, those things start about $300,000 to $400,000 for an Escalade. That's B6 rated Escalade. All right.
I
And so
was just looking at one the other day, $500,000 easy.
yeah, but here's the worst part. You got to have a Secret Service officer or somebody open that goddamn door for you, because they are very, very, very heavy doors.
Malcolm, let me just
Yes?
come up with a little thing here that we have skipped, but something that our audience should
What's
be
that?
aware of. The strikes in Iraq that we talked about yesterday.
Yes. Mhm.
Very important that Iran has confirmed that 5 IRGC officers were killed in those strikes. So
Sure.
it was bona fide IRGC officers, in some of these strikes along the border. And as I usually say, these guys are up to no good. So
Yeah,
don't cry for them.
that's
But
not them. They're Quds Force, right? That's like finding.
yeah,
That's like saying, somebody massacred a force in Mali, and suddenly you find out there's 5 special forces guys attached to them. That's
yeah,
what we do. Iranians have a clandestine indigenous service force,
a Quds
support force that
Force.
goes out and trains and works with their
It's the external
proxies.
arm of the Revolutionary Guards,
Correct.
headed by
Okay.
Ismail Khani.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay. Let's look. Go ahead.
according about the armored vehicle, one of the companions of the Prophet after he became the Khalifa, he was once seen sleeping under a tree without protection. And a guy passed by and looked at him and he said, Adilta fa'aminta fanimta. You were just, so you were safe, so you slept.
So you were sleeping. Right. Khalas. There's nothing more to be said. It was said by
With those
Benjamin
words,
Franklin better, right? No, Benjamin Franklin said almost the same thing, right? Those who seek security, or what is it? Those who seek security over liberty deserve neither, right? If you're slacking back and you're sleeping, this is what you get. And the funny part is that there's this entire branch of the Middle East that has no problem with Donald Trump destroying the Middle East. Think they're going to make some money. They really do. You got this, you got the new Iraqi president. If I were him, I would be very afraid of the people on the other side of the border. They showed capacity to change governments in a violent way. And for him to think, I've got a suit, I've got a new tie, Donald Trump likes me. The Americans, when it gets down to you, I'm not going to have your back there, buddy. We're not invading Iraq again to keep you alive. So, all right, there's some other
is in all
questions.
sorts of trouble.
Okay, Baba, I'm going to have to answer some of these on my own. Why doesn't the U.S. have air superiority missions over Iran? And what's with making it painful on mobile launchers? It's interesting because we talked about Operation Southern Watch and Operation Northern Watch, which was a U.S. campaign that kept fighter jets 24/7 over southern Iraq and northern Iraq for 10 years. And any Iraqi air defense systems that came below a certain line.
Oh,
Malcolm's gone.
not the NSA again.
Did the IRGC find out?
No.
The IRGC cut his internet.
This is not okay.
No. Let's wait and see if he comes back up again. I'll just say I'll have to run now. I put up a special Q&A about all the militias in Iraq and Yemen and Lebanon. And we'll discuss the possible Iranian strategy, and I'll see if more evidence surfaces about the Damietta attack, whatever that was. But now you've all heard the red team here, so I'll take that into account. I jumped the gun perhaps and said it was from Lebanon. Let's see about that. But yeah, that'll be on at 8 p.m. tonight, Central European time. So in 4 hours.
I also have a very special interview coming up tomorrow with Professor Deborah Shushan, a Georgetown fella, and an expert when it comes to the Middle East, specifically the Levant region, Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and the shifting sands and the new alliances in the Middle East. She was amazing in the last interview. She's in the top 10 in the last several days when it comes to international. Amazing speaker, very well informative. So please join us tomorrow at it will be 11 a.m. Eastern. And also, if you have a minute to subscribe to Jacob, please subscribe to Jacob. Up to me, we would really appreciate it.
Right.
Thank you very much. And we would appreciate it if you could also consider becoming a paid subscriber. We depend on your support so we could do this full. You don't have to do it full time. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're watching a recording. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and then join us on Substack. You don't have to pay for the information and the live stream that we have on Substack. But we provide a lot of information. We have an amazing community that is looking to learn and have investigative reporting. So if that's something you're interested in, join us in Substack. I think that is all I have for you today, unless you have something else.
Have you ever been part of a red team session before like this?
I actually have done something like this in college, but not not after college. No.
No, and I said I watched the comments, and a lot of people were saying, "Ah, you need more data." Yeah, that's right. And as intelligence people, we always search for data, but you always have your scenarios and your main line of thought, and maybe something deviates. So you always have to keep an open mind about what really happened. So super interesting, and I hope everyone enjoyed it out there.
It's actually a really good brain exercise for everyone to try to do that, getting yourself out of your shoes and putting yourself in someone else's shoes, and try to think rationally what is best in your best interest if you're someone else. It's not an easy exercise, but it's called one of the best ways to focus it is called being behind a veil. Look up the philosophy of the veil of ignorance, and you'll have the first steps that you'll need to learn to start doing that particular exercise. Thank you so much.
See you tomorrow, Wajeeh. See you, Malcolm,
See you tomorrow.
wherever he is.
Bye-bye.
Bye.